Happy Thursday, everyone. It is the 18th of February in 2021, and we are in session TE1, that is Text Evidence 1. You will definitely need to have your notebooks out and your screens split because you will probably need to take a lot of notes today. We're going to be talking about citing text evidence. It's something I've talked about all year long, proving your answers. Um, but sadly, a lot of you are still not doing it, and that's why you get answers wrong on tests and assignments. It's an easy fix if you just listen and do what I ask. Your practice today, of course, is going to be on citing text evidence, and there is a Khan Academy video that you need to watch. So if you have not joined the Khan Academy in our class, the code is on the post-it note. You need to do that. Right now, a little less than half of you have done that. And thank you to all of you. The rest of you, if you don't do it, you're going to get a 0 on the assignment. What can I say? That's your choice. All right, so let's talk about citing text evidence. All right, so the big question is, why aren't you doing it? Because you know how to do it and you know what it is. But for some reason, you're choosing not to do it. And I think that reason is most of us tend to be lazy and think, oh, well, I remember that. So here's the answer. But as I've told you before, when it comes to remembering specific details in a passage, your head is little more than a hat holder. Your memory is not as good as going back and seeing what the answer actually should be. If you have the text available, why aren't you using it to answer your questions? I don't understand that. So here's a little anchor chart. Some of these things are good for you to write down because when you write, it's important that you reference textual information. So as a writer, these are some things that you should do. Use the exact words of an author when you read their text. Use quotation marks and say where you found the information according to the text, and write these down. If you have to freeze this video to do this, write them down. On page blank, the author stated, or you can say the author wrote, as the author mentioned. These are all things that you can do in your writing to make sure that you're not only writing complete sentences, but you are referencing the text. That is for writing. Now, citing evidence is a two-way street. It's not just for writing, but it is also for reading. So when I ask what is text evidence, it's really simple. Text evidence is the written proof of your answers. Text evidence is the written proof of your answers. And how do I find it? There's the rub. How do you find text evidence? Well, I've put it in a lengthy terms here, but it really comes down to one word: read. So I'm not yelling at you when I write in all caps, but I am yelling at you when I write in all caps. Go back and look in the passage. Really, go back and look in the passage. Everything you need to know is in the passage. So we're going to practice it a little bit today, and I'm going to bring up a lesson. Well, I think I have one already loaded. Yes. Okay. So this is citing evidence to make inferences. We just talked about inferences. So I might not read this word for word for you, but you can go back and look at it, of course. But when you analyze something, you're examining its parts to see how everything works together. You want to make sure that what the text says is explicit or direct. Unless the question says, what can you infer from, then it's asking you to cite textual evidence. So look at the picture. It says, find the slowest runner in the picture. All right, so I'm going to look for the slowest runner in the picture. And I'm going to say it's this guy right here. Is he sad about losing? Well, I'm going to look at him. He doesn't look sad. So I could infer that he's not sad. But I have textual evidence that he's not sad, right? Look what he's saying. He's saying this. I love this sport. So I know that even though he's losing, he's out there enjoying himself. He's out there for the fun of the sport. He's not out there to win. He's out there to do his best and enjoy himself. This is textual evidence. This is textual evidence. Pictures can be text evidence. So the expression on the runner's face is what? Well, let's say he's happy. And the runner says, and remember now we have, this is a quote, right? So you need to have quotation marks. I love this sport. So your background knowledge is that a person who loves the sport also enjoys participating in it, right? If you really enjoy playing football, but you're not on a team, that doesn't mean that you're not good. It doesn't mean that you can't have fun. You're just out there for the fun of the sport. So your inference is that the runner is just happy to compete. He's just happy to be there. So we have our text evidence and we have our inference. You have to analyze the text to get the most out of it, ladies and gentlemen. So let's look at this piece here. Read the first 3 paragraphs of an article that showcases Michael Jordan. All right, so let's talk about young Mr. Jordan. Game 5 of the 1997 basketball playoffs should have been the game that the Chicago Bulls lost. It should, in fact, have marked the Utah Jazz's first NBA championship win. Michael Jordan, the Bulls' star player, had spent the previous 24 hours bedridden and dehydrated with what doctors had diagnosed as the stomach flu. He had lost weight and had missed 2 key days of practice leading up to the game. It was a recipe for disaster. But 3 hours before the start of Game 5, the best player in the history of basketball suited up and appeared on the court. Though Jordan was visibly weak in the first quarter, he had scored 17 points by the second, putting the Bulls ahead at halftime. However, while Jordan spent the third quarter overcome by nausea and fatigue, Utah managed to reclaim the lead. All right, so we know this piece is about Michael Jordan. It's about a particular game and him having the flu. So let's explore how to answer these questions. What is Michael Jordan's attitude toward competition? What text evidence supports your idea? So we know this is an important game, right? It's a playoff game. And the question is, what is his attitude? What is his attitude towards competition? Now, you can just rattle off and say, well, he's highly competitive. A lot of people say he's the GOAT. A lot of people say a lot of things about him. But you have to prove what you say. You can't just say it. This isn't fake news. So Michael Jordan's attitude is not stated, right? It doesn't say, oh, Michael Jordan is highly competitive. So use the evidence. Use the evidence that you find. Look for that evidence and use your background knowledge, what you already know. So here's the recipe. Jordan was diagnosed with the flu before game 5, right? But we know his team depends on him a lot. We also know that when you're really sick, it's hard to play a sport, especially at the professional level. It's hard to be that aggressive. So, what can we put as text evidence that supports that playing sports while sick requires determination? Well, let's see. Game 5 of the 1997 basketball playoffs, blah, blah, blah. Michael Jordan, the ball, okay. 24 hours, bedridden and dehydrated. Um, oh, but 3 hours. Let's look at this. 3 hours before the start of the game, he suited up and appeared on the court. He was visibly weak. So let's go back to this. Playing sports while sick requires determination. So we could say 3 hours. 3 hours before the game, he suited up. Playing sports while sick requires determination. We could also say he was visibly weak. But he was out there, right? So, what is your inference about Michael Jordan and what he believes about competition? What does he believe that competition is? Well, Michael Jordan probably believes, let me get my text box. What do you think? I'm going to give you just a second while I get that L out of there. Michael Jordan believes that competition, what? Think about it because I want you to write it in your notebook. You got it? Michael Jordan believes that competition, don't say it's important. How about that? Competition is what drives him to be so good. Okay? Competition is important. Without being competitive, he wouldn't be as good as he is. Most people would have just said, "Oh, I'm sick. I have the flu." There was another great basketball player in the 70s, um, played for the New York Knicks, and he was their center, and he broke his leg in the first half of the game. But again, it was an important game. And when the players came back out at halftime, he came hobbling out there with his team. Well, actually, a little bit after his team. And he got in the game with a broken leg and played. And he played well, and they won. Competition drives people. Even people who say they're not competitive are competitive about something. Well, Michael Jordan is competitive about everything. So, what text evidence supports the inference that Michael Jordan is a fierce competitor? With a partner, you don't have a partner, so that's okay. Find evidence in the article that supports your answer and write it on the lines below. So, if you were doing this assignment, you would probably write things like um, the 3 hours before the game, he suited up. He was visibly weak in the first quarter, but he scored 17 points by the second quarter, right? Okay. So we don't have the whole article yet. We don't know the outcome. We only know that Utah got back in the lead after that. In the third quarter, he spent the third quarter overcome by nausea and fatigue. So we don't know what happened after that, but Utah took the lead. So are you interested to find out? In the third quarter, I felt like I couldn't catch my wind, Jordan said. I was just trying to get myself through it. So he was at that point exhausted, nauseated, having a hard time catching his breath, but he kept playing. I was just trying to get myself through it. In the fourth quarter, Jordan scored 18 more points. 18 points in the fourth quarter. Then, with only 25 seconds left in the game, he scored a 3-point shot, and the Bulls beat the Jazz by only 2 points. At the end of the game, Jordan collapsed into the arms of his teammate, Scottie Pippen. I almost played myself into passing out just to win a basketball game, Jordan admitted later. If we had lost, I would have been devastated. So let's look at this question here. Which sentence from the passage best supports the idea that he is a talented basketball player? In the third quarter, I felt like I didn't catch my wind, Jordan said. I was trying to get myself through it. Does that show talent? No, that shows determination. In the fourth quarter, Jordan scored 18 more points. That's a possibility, isn't it? Because he only scored 17 in the first 2 quarters. Then, with 25 seconds left in the game, he scored a 3-point shot, and the Bulls beat the Jazz by only 2 points. Maybe. That would take talent, wouldn't it? I almost played myself into passing out just to win a basketball game, Jordan admitted later. Well, they've given you a hint over here. It says, look for the choice that shows Jordan's talent, not his dedication or his luck. So his dedication is that he played. And the 3-point shot, while of course he's usually a good player and maybe scores a lot of 3-point shots, one 3-point shot, that might be luck. So I'm going to say in the fourth quarter, he scored 18 more points. That would be my choice. If I look back at all the examples that it gave of things that he did, I'm going to say his talent shone best in the fact that he scored 18 more points in the fourth quarter. So then it asks us to show our thinking and write about why he's a dedicated player. Okay? If you were doing this activity on your own, you would be writing about his dedication, including the fact that he suited up for the game, that he scored 17 points in the first 2 quarters, that even though he was nauseated and exhausted, he continued to play, that he scored 18 points in the fourth quarter, and that he won the game at what was almost a bell buzzer, almost 25 seconds. Okay, those are pieces of evidence that you would use to do that. All right, so in the interest of time, I'm not going to read the second one to you. You can look at the video, and if you want to read it, here it is. You can freeze it and read it. It's good practice for you. It talks about close reading and underlining details from the text that show the kind of trouble this person had. So might be a good thing to do because underlining is a great tool. What did Amundsen do for him, for the character, the person that Scott did not? What did he do that Scott did not do? Circle that detail to show his advantages. Okay, so Amundsen apparently is his competition. Okay, I see now. So they're racing to get to the North Pole, or the South Pole, sorry. You need to remember that any of these texts that I give you, you can manipulate them in Cami. You can underline, circle, highlight, do what you need to. I see some of you do that. I see most of you don't. And those of you who don't, you get your answers wrong more than you get them right. Okay? So then there's a question, and there are hints. Which choice provides evidence that Amundsen was not very trusting? Think about what finally happened to Scott and his men. Which choice explains their fate? What did Amundsen have in his favor that Scott did not? So I want you to look at these questions and see if you can answer them. All of this can go in your notebook. I expect to see something there about this. What you're going to get in your assignment is this, the independent practice from the President's Speech to Students by President Barack Obama. So read this speech, and again, I expect to see underlining that refers directly to the questions. I expect you to find your answers. You need to support your evidence. Now, for the 3 multiple guess questions, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Listen carefully. When you go back and find your proof, I want you to highlight it. So for number 1, I want you to use one color. For number 2, I want you to use another color. And for number 3, I want you to use a third color. So that way you're not having to write your evidence, because I know you don't like to write because you're lazy like that. But I want you to highlight the evidence that supports your answer in 3 different colors for the 3 different questions. Then when you get to question number 4, it says, read the statement below and answer the question that follows it. President Obama believes that creativity is a valuable trait for people to have. Explain how you can tell that the above statement is true. Write a paragraph responding to this question and use at least 2 details from the passage to support your response. So you need to pull 2 details from the passage that prove how you can tell that he believes that creativity is valuable. This is a paragraph, ladies and gentlemen. That means 8 sentences or more. Not 5 to 8, 8 sentences or more. Let me say that again. I expect to see 8 or more sentences. This, of course, is due Friday at midnight. All right, so here is the Khan Academy assignment. And again, if you have not signed up for Khan Academy, you need to do that or you won't be able to see the video. So you're going to watch in our class in Khan Academy, you'll see a video about text evidence. You might want to do this first. If you have not signed up, go to Khan Academy to join a class, and here's the code. Now, on here, there are, I think, 5 questions. These 5 questions go with the video. So you need to watch the video in order to answer the questions. And when you finish, I want you to submit it. But I also want you to hit the submit button, and I can't do it in student view because it's not published yet, but up here you will have a red submit button. Hit that as well. That will keep you from getting a 0 in the grade book. A lot of you go into panic when you see that, because when you just submit the Google form, it goes to spreadsheet for me, and I have to manually transfer grades one at a time into the grade book. So the computer, the Canvas system, automatically assumes, unless you hit submit, that you didn't do the assignment. So you want to hit submit for the Google form and submit for the Canvas assignment. Make sure that you did your iReady yesterday. I hope you took advantage of the catch-up room yesterday as well. As usual, I will be available in class all day tomorrow to help you if you have questions. Other than that, I hope you have a great weekend, and I will talk to you on Monday. If you are not coming to class and you are just watching the videos, please consider joining the class since you are being marked absent. That's all I have to say, ladies and gentlemen. T2 out.